welcome you guys to come on in, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit of the logistics. If you have questions, please direct them to the question and answers. And we have something special that Simon had talked about wanting to have. If you guys want to come on live, make sure you have your cameras on. We want to like simulate a in-person feeling, because we know everybody's doing webinars. Everybody's listening to pretty much YouTube on screen. That was like Simon's words, right? Well, we actually want to engage you guys. So when we start taking questions, I want you guys to use the raise your hand function. And then when I get you guys, you raise your hand, I'm just going to pull you over as a panelist, and you're going to be able to ask your questions face to face with Simon. Please, like I said, have your cameras on. Of course, like if you got to run and go put a t-shirt and some pants on, go do that right now. But yeah, we're going to have you guys want to welcome. And I'm going to hand it over to Miss Melissa Cohen. She's the director of the Department of the Navy Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Office. And her office is actually putting on this webinar, and they're partnering with us. So Ms. Cohen, take it away.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon to everyone. I am incredibly excited about the turnout today. I first want to thank you, Naval X, for your continued partnership and support of our Standing Watch webinar series. Also, thank you, Dr. Jessica Gallus, Julie Patrick, Navia Summers, and the entire team, really for designing meaningful events that reach far and wide across the Department of Defense. And of course, to you, Simon, for your time today. It is an incredible honor to have you with us. For everyone, we created this webinar series for the helping professionals across the Department of Defense. That was our original intent. And while we're in this remote work context where our face-to-face interactions are more limited, we just wanted to engage in discussions on certain topics like maintaining connections and fostering trust, keeping a sense of community despite the physical distance. We wanted to talk about skills building and maintaining our resilience. So we're so excited about the positive response to the series. It has extended well beyond helping professionals, I'm happy to say as well. The past few months, though, have no doubt helped us solidify that self-care and resilience, they're critical aspects to mission performance. And we're just really looking forward to continuing these sessions and our continued partnership with Naval X. So thank you so much. And Ashley, back over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen. And it looks like Rear Admiral Selby joined in. Admiral Selby, do you have your camera on?
I do. I don't know if you can see me or not, but I just turned it on. How we doing?
Hey, good. We're looking at a black screen, but we're just going to keep going with it. Oh, there you go.
We just figured it out. All right, I think we're good.
Hey, right, Admiral Selby.
Hey, how are you?
Good, good. Hey, guys, if you guys don't know him, because, I mean, a lot of times we don't get to see these faces. This is the Chief of Naval Research, Admiral Selby. Hey.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, so I've actually only been the Chief of Naval Research now about just going on 2 months. So I just took over here end of May, and wow, to me, what an awesome job. I mean, just get to dig in science, technology across the spectrum. But for today, I got to tell you, really excited when I was offered this opportunity to tee up Simon. And Simon, just to let you know, so I watched that TED Talk along with 50 million other people several years back, Start With Why, read the book, totally resonated with me. I mean, like from end to end. I'm one of those guys who earmarks pages and writes notes. The entire book is like filled. And then on top of that, I just got done like 2 months ago reading this one, The Infinite Game. And again, dog-eared pages, making notes everywhere. And in fact, this morning, talking to my my O&R team during a webcast, I actually read from it because we were talking about diversity and inclusion. Okay, and one of the topics, I keep talking about wanting to kind of create an environment where people feel safe, and safe to fail, safe to participate, safe to contribute, so you get the most out of your team. And so I'm just going to really read it here for the team, and Simon, you'll obviously know this one, but here's what you wrote here. Leaders are not responsible for the results. Leaders are responsible for the people who are responsible for the results. And the best way to drive performance in an organization is to create an environment in which information can flow freely, mistakes can be highlighted, and help can be offered and received. In short, an environment in which people feel safe. And so I actually read that to my entire team this morning, and told them that's what I'm trying to create here at the Office of Naval Research and the entire Naval Research enterprise, because in today's age, with the competition we're facing on the world stage, the infinite game that we're in, we've got to think differently about the problem set, and we need everybody on the team to be able to contribute and feel that they're valued members, because they are valued members, and we need them to get this, to get the job done, as it were. So really excited to hear what you got to say today. Thanks for the opportunity here to tee up Simon. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to you, Simon.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be here. I have a long relationship with the military, and so any opportunity I get to share and compare ideas is as much a gift to me as it is to you. So I really appreciate the invitation. Ashley, should we jump into it?
Oh, yeah, let's do it. So I was going to text Julie, but Julie's on screen. Admiral Selby, if you want to join in on the conversation as well, because I actually like this. So just for the people that just joined us, real quick, drop your questions in the question and answer. I have some that people already asked prior to. And we got a special thing. If you want to be on camera to talk to Simon yourself, use the raise your hand function. So when I go to those questions, I'm actually going to bring you over to as a panelist, and it's like you're going to be right here in the room with us. So I really like the conversation we were having previous, and we're just going to get right into it. So I want to start off with, this was actually like a question that was from the audience, but like, I am positive Patty, Simon. I'm always happy. I smile all the time. I give my smiles. I got some coworkers on here. They know me. Like, I give my smiles out freely because it's infectious. I think the standing webinar series last month actually talked about that emotional contagion. But I went into depression in the beginning of this. Like the first 3 weeks, I never telework because I like people. I don't get work done at home because I want to do laundry or sleep or eat. So a lot of people actually were asking questions like, how did you stay optimistic? You know, you're like, how did you stay optimistic? People said, how do you stay optimistic as a leader, as the workforce, the task force, the ones that had to go in during COVID? How do you stay optimistic during those times? Because I want to know.
So I think one of the big mistakes that people make, and a lot of leaders make this mistake, is the difference between positivity and optimism. You know, leaders think they always have to be positive, which means putting a positive veneer on everything. Everything's good, everything's fine, everything's going to be great, everything's fine. Look, we're strong, we're this, we're that. And especially when you go through a time of trauma like COVID, it's just not true. And so it actually sometimes can make us feel worse because we see our leader who thinks everything's positive and I don't feel that way. So I can actually feel that there's something wrong with me because that leader's positive and I'm not. And so it can backfire. What's most important from a leader is optimism. And optimism is different in the fact that it doesn't deny the difficulty that we're in, but it's about staying focused on where we're going. So we are in a dark tunnel. It is hard, it is difficult. There's going to be pain, but we are focused on where we're going, the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know how long we're going to be in this tunnel. I don't know how far we're going to have to travel. It's going to be a hard journey, but we will get out of this, and we will get out of this stronger than we went in. And so the optimism, it's the hope that keeps us focused and keeps us inspired. But it allows for us to have dark days. It is not and to say that we shouldn't have dark days is a denial of how humans react to trauma. One of the things that I noticed, and Ashley, I'm like you, when we first went into lockdown, I was like, got to reinvent, got to pivot, and I'm embarrassed to say it, but it was kind of fun. Like it was, not denying the tragedy that was befalling our country, but the challenge that I faced intellectually for my own organization, and that I had to pivot and I had to react. That pace was invigorating for me. And I got a little nervous that that was that way. So I actually called a friend who's active duty military, and I said, can you talk about compartmentalizing your emotions? Because you guys go to war, you compartmentalize because you have a mission to do. And he actually gave me a warning. He said, there's no such thing as compartmentalizing your emotions. He says, we can put it aside for a very little bit of time when we're in the fight. He says, but you're going to have to deal with the trauma at some point. You cannot compartmentalize and not deal with it. He says, very often, we won't deal with it until we come back from combat, sometimes 3, 4, 5 months after we're back from combat. And then we start to get short-tempered. There's increases in domestic violence. There's increases in depression, anxiety, self-harm. And everybody's like, what's wrong with you? Everything's fine. You're not in the middle of danger. Everything's normal, quote unquote.
Right.
And he says, and he basically offered me a warning. He said, you're good now, but you're going to have to deal with this at some point. And the interesting thing is like, we're now 4 or 5 months into this, and I'm starting to deal with it now. And so when you ask how I stay optimistic, I have to lean on friends. Like when I have my bad days, like I got to force myself, even if I'm feeling antisocial, I got to force myself to pick up the phone and tell somebody I'm having a bad day. I'm having a behind day. I don't like good and bad. It's too absolute. I like behind and ahead. It means that there's a journey. Ahead means it's never going to last, and behind means it's never going to last.
Yeah, I guess so. So in saying that, so how do you, so I've been hearing like the conversations of people saying, yeah, when this ends, like, what if it doesn't? Like people kind of have this kind of like, they in their mind made up this ending cycle. Because first we said 6 weeks, and it said 2 months. And now I said, hey, vaccine's not coming out till next year. And the workforce, hey, we're still having to be digital. Like some people still have to go into the office and get their work done. And then like, it's like, okay, if I get into another state and I'm now traveling, other states are a little bit more lenient with social distancing and their masks. And here in Maryland, DC, Virginia, mask inside of every building. Go to West Virginia, half the people didn't have masks on. So like, what would you say to people that's like, okay, they're holding on to that moment to where it's like, okay, now we go back to being normal again?
Well, we're never going to go back to normal. There's no such thing. We'll go back to abnormal. This is like World War II in the sense that life before World War II and life after World War II were not the same. And it's going to affect our worldview. I'm most curious about young people. I have a niece and nephew who are 9 and 11, and it's going to change the way that they live their lives. If you think about it, our grandparents who lived through World War II, they were frugal and miserly. They reused every piece of aluminum foil and saved every jam jar. Well, there was nothing mentally wrong with them. It's because their experience of going through the Depression and then through the war affected their worldview. And so it's going to be the same for us. Like what we're going through now is going to affect the worldview of an entire generation. Like I have no idea if every time they shake their hands, they're going to Purell themselves. I have no idea if they're going to, in how they deal with, my niece, I bought her a present and I gave it to her. And the first question she asked me, 11 years old, she says, have you cleaned it yet? Have you wiped it down yet? And so we don't know how it's going to affect a generation, but I can almost guarantee that the what they're learning and what they're doing, it's going to affect them. So I think we have to get comfortable with the fact that we don't know what our future is going to look like, but it won't look like where we came from. It cannot. And some of it will be positive and some of it will be negative. Like the positive things is, I think all kinds of illness has gone down because all we do is wash our hands now, which probably we should have been doing all the time.
Right, right.
So, there's some good habits that will come out of it. Yeah.
It's interesting that you said that too, because like I actually went to my church this past weekend for the first time in months, because we're starting to kind of get in that reopen phase. And like I asked people, because I'm a hugger, I'm a big hugger. So I asked them, okay, hugger or no hugger? Because I'll still hug with the mask, you turn your head, but I teach children's church, and the little girl, she's 5, ran up to me, but she stopped, she pulled up her mask, and then she ran to me. And it's like, I missed that. Like I literally cried like 3 or 4 weeks in because I missed going to church to hug the babies. And so I saw a couple of questions about relationships. And like, so they said people sometimes change the interpersonal relationships, like from being in person. And now most of us are digital. We're all digital now. So how do you think people change their behaviors like when personally connected? So how do you think that's going to affect them now being virtually connected?
So the most important thing is we are still human beings, and digital hasn't changed that. And we still need and crave human interaction. And what I think so interesting is some of the good tenets of leadership. Sort of leadership is a very human experience. It's about taking care of people. It's about creating environments in which trust and communication can flow both directions. And what I think is so interesting is when COVID started, a lot of leaders, regardless if they were considered good leaders or ineffective leaders prior to COVID, just because they're human beings, if they had any ounce of humanity in them, a lot of people picked up the phone and called their people individually and just said, hey, just wanted to check up on you and see how you're doing. Correct. My question is why weren't you doing that prior to COVID? That's just a good natural leadership habit, just to check in on your people. And now the fact that we've had to pivot to more digital, I think what a lot of people have noticed is we're doing Zoom meetings. We're doing VTCs more often because we're trying to create some sort of human connection. Emails have actually, I hope, declined. We start to realize that we overuse email. We CC everybody. We're all complaining about our inboxes, and yet we forget that we're the ones who hit reply all. Like, what time's the meeting? Reply all, 3 p.m. You just clogged up 12 people's inboxes. I think it's an act of service to consider the damage you do to somebody else's inbox while you're trying to deal with your own. Maybe just hit reply, or even better, especially if it's a question of compliment, criticism, or any response to an idea, pick up the phone, right? And I've actually
feel very called out, Simon.
I know the military is egregious for this. I'm like calling out the entire DOD for this. And I understand paper trails and CYA, I got it, but you can have a phone call and then send an email saying, just to confirm our phone call, and you've got your paper trail.
I've got a philosophy, and it's send less, get less. And it's
exactly.
True. Send less, you get less. And yeah, do not reply all, because that just, everybody wants to reply. It's like, stop.
Exactly.
Send less,
exactly, sir. And my favorite is the discussion of ideas over an email.
Oh,
55
terrible.
emails where we talk at each other. That's a 5-minute phone call, by the way. So I think what's so interesting about this and learning about human interaction is, I think one of the things that VTC does not do as well as a phone call. When we do VTC, either we're actually trying to make eye contact with them, but because of the placement of the camera and the placement, and what everybody else sees is this: I'm making eye contact and I feel like I'm connected to you, but you're looking at this, nodding my head while we're having this VTC, or I'm staring at a hole in the top of my screen in an attempt to make eye contact with everybody, but I'm just staring at the hole in a screen, or I'm just looking at myself, because let's be honest, right? I think that the phone is fantastic because I find that people are way more present. You're not looking at yourself or at a dot, and tone of voice really, really matters. And when somebody says, "Hey boss, I need to talk, I'm having a hard time," you're missing the body language, but that tone of voice is fantastic. And so I try and use the phone. And again, we talked about those natural inclinations, like leaders picking up the phone and saying, "How you doing?" Young people who hate the telephone and think everything can be done over a text are using the telephone. They're actually texting less to talk about their feelings and picking up the phone. I think there's a lot of lessons that I hope that we notice through COVID on how we're naturally responding as human beings with the kind of affection and intimacy that we need, that we keep those habits going after COVID as well.
Simon, I think that's a really important point in terms of tone of voice and checking in on your folks. What are some of the other things that you would recommend leaders do, or really any team member, to stay connected?
So one of the things that I strongly recommend is huddle, a weekly huddle with the team. Mondays are good, but you can do them anytime you want. And the point of huddle is that we're not here to connect about work. We're going to have 55 VTCs for the rest of the week where we're going to talk about work. It's not to talk about to-do lists or due dates or progress or anything. It's a check-in where we go around the room and you say what's on your heart and mind. Everybody gets 2 minutes, what's on your heart and mind, and then you answer some sort of either fun or poignant question. At the top, a leader can give you a quick update, not work-related, but maybe broader themes. And it's just a really nice way for people to recognize and see each other as humans, find out what somebody did over a weekend. And sometimes if somebody talks about a struggle over the weekend, it creates a safe space for everybody else to talk about the struggle, which then creates information that you can call that person afterwards, whether you're the leader or not, whether you're the formal leader or not, and say, "Hey, on Huddle, I heard you had a rough weekend. Do you want to talk?"
Oh my gosh, Simon, that's crazy that you say that, because 2 instances happened. So after George Floyd was killed, so 2 things happened. So my coworker, who's a non-African American, he's my team lead. He asked me, he's actually helping us out, Mohawk Matt. I'm going to go ahead and say it, because he said, "Hey, Ashley, offline, if you need to take some time, how you feeling?" First, he asked me, how was I feeling? If you need to take some time, no question, just take it. Like, I don't understand personally, but if you need some space, let me know. And the second thing, that made me emotional because it was like, wow, somebody actually recognized that. After other race riot things, I would be emotional coming into work and had to suck it in and hold it. But like, even if we're in a virtual environment, he still took the opportunity to like say, hey, Ashley, if you need a second, let me know. And another thing that happened, my old boss, who is an African-American, he started a working group for his code of like 130 people. We're actually talking today at 5 to actually get on the call and just talk about what's going on in society. And there's Asians, Hispanics, African-Americans, Caucasians, all different races on the talk. And we talk about our experiences. And we're virtual and we're connecting and we're learning. And so what you're saying is so powerful because like, that's what we need. And I feel like we've done it. I feel like it has helped us be better because we're virtual. Because like, if I got to stay late and sit in traffic, I may not jump on an hour call. Yeah. But now I'm already at home. I can take an hour and jump in this conversation. So what you said is powerful. Thank you for that.
Ashley, and I think you're touching upon another theme, which I think is important, which is there is darkness and tragedy, but the world is balanced. You know, nature abhors a vacuum and nature seeks equilibrium at all times. And in tragedy, there's also opportunity. And I think one of the things that the fact that we all witnessed this murder of George Floyd, and you talked about it, it's forcing very difficult conversations about race, and it's forcing us to confront things. But that's also teaching us a skill on how to have difficult conversations. And difficult conversations exist outside of race relations as well. And I think it's teaching us a skill set, because I think a lot of people want to start difficult conversations, don't know how, don't want to say the wrong thing, don't want to accidentally do the wrong thing. And so they just don't do it. They back out. This is what the norm has been for decades. And now we're being forced to do it. And I think it creates an environment where we're learning how to have all kinds of difficult conversations, which is only a good thing.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I wanted to pull over 2 people from our audience as well, because, I don't know if I can pull them over. Oh, Matt, can you pull them over? Sorry. So yeah, we'll take, I gave away the host.
Well delegated, Ashley, well
delegated.
I
know, right? We wanted to make sure, because yeah, we have a full webinar so we wanted to bring in the people from YouTube as well. So I gave the host abilities away. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and pull in these listeners right here. So Jessica, you had your hand up.
That was me.
Oh,
no. Sorry, this is Julie. No.
Hello? Lucy? Oh, yeah, well. Sorry. Oh, there we go. Hey. You had a question?
Lucy, you're muted.
Oh, Jimmy, go ahead. I see you on the mic.
Right on.
Hey, Jimmy.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for inviting me over. Hey, Simon, I'm a big fan of yours. I've been watching you for years, so thanks for doing this. What I'm seeing is a lot of questions, or a lot of, with Black Lives Matters, there's a lot of, systemic racism is becoming more and more of an issue. What do you recommend how to deal with those difficult conversations, especially when you're talking about like microaggressions and some people don't acknowledge them? I've been reading a lot of books, but I'm really curious to know what your thoughts are on how to handle, difficult conversations based around systemic racism, especially from like one white man to another.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I did when, after we all witnessed the video of George Floyd's murder, is I had the same feelings, which is I knew I had to do something. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to accidentally make a fool of myself or make something worse or make somebody feel bad with good intentions. And I didn't, I was stuck. And so I picked up the phone and one by one, called a bunch of my African-American friends and was very honest. I said, I don't know what to do. I'm struggling. I need help. And they were magical. They guided me, and I learned a new skill. And I think they were grateful that I was asking for help. And I think this is one of the biggest mistakes that anybody in a leadership position makes. It's the biggest mistake that a lot of us make, regardless of a leadership position, which is we think we have to have all the answers. And if we don't, we pretend that we do. And and what increases our credibility as leaders is to admit we don't know the answers and we do need help, especially when we live a different life. This is what diversity and inclusion means. And I have lived a different life from you, and I know that if you bring your opinions, points of view, perspective, to bear, we become a greater and stronger organization. So it's not just one group of people with one perspective making all the decisions. But I think we've lacked the skill set and even how to do that. Even well-intended, we've lacked the skill set on how to do that. And so I think what you're highlighting is a huge missing skill that most of us have not learned, which is the skill to listen. We don't teach listening in leadership training. And the question is, why not? I cannot stand this idea where we talk about hard skills and soft skills. There's nothing soft about any of these skills. They are human skills. We're teaching the skills of what it means to be human. Things like how to give and receive feedback, how to have an effective confrontation, how to start difficult conversations, and how to listen. These are teachable, learnable, practicable skills. And like any kind of muscle or exercise, if you don't use it, you lose it. And so I think a lot of us are learning, how to listen, but also just how bad we are at listening. Where we hear the words and we can repeat back what you said to me, but I didn't really understand the meaning, especially when we're talking about microaggressions. Somebody might be telling us how they feel, and we start thinking about ourselves. Well, I didn't mean it. So, we start thinking about our defense. We start thinking about what we want to say in response. So I think what you're talking about is we're learning that we're missing a huge skill that is highly necessary in the human race, but definitely in functional organizations.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jimmy, for your question. Brought over Cynthia as well. Hi, Cynthia.
Hi, I'm Commissioner Cindy Jeffries, and I work for Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service. And we, and a lot of people don't know this, we offer a host of trainings customized to the areas. Sorry. And one of the things that we've had a tremendous amount of requests for and have actually done remotely now is on these difficult conversations. How do you have them? What do you do? Crucial conversations. And Simon, you're right. The listening piece is not taught. It's not taught in our educational arena. Virtually, like, not even 1% of the schools are teaching it. And so that's all incorporated in it. And so those are skills that, we can offer and we bring. It doesn't matter what the sector is, federal, private, public, it doesn't matter. And, people aren't aware that we offer these types of trainings and that they're free of charge.
That's great, Cynthia. I love that you're getting the word out there, and I hope people take advantage of it. The other thing that I would offer, and very often, one of the things that prevents organizations and leaders from doing these things, we don't have the budget, we don't have this, there are resources out there that are free. I always talk about this when organizations claim they're resource constrained, which is, can you buy a book? There's a great book out there called How to Talk to Kids So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. It's a bright yellow book. Yes, it's a parenting book. It also happens to be a fantastic book for all of us to learn how to listen, because it turns out the way kids respond, exactly the same as all human beings. So start a book club where every week you talk about a chapter. Congratulations, you have a training. And you make it all voluntary. And if one person may already have a love for the book that you're reading, ask them if they would be willing to teach a class to other people who are unavailable. Congratulations, you now have a totally organic training course. And I've seen lots of organizations build out training curricula organically. So Cynthia, I think it's great that you're putting your resources out there. I hope people reach out. And for those who if there's any kind of constraint for whatever reason, start a book club. The book, somebody asked, what was the book title again? The book title was How to Talk to Kids So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. I think I have my copy on my desk. There you go.
Just wanted to take a second for Julie, because we have some phone people that, like, if they want to raise their hand, they kind of can't. They're on the phone. So just two options, guys. If you want to hop over to our YouTube page, I have a colleague that's actually monitoring our YouTube page for questions. And then Julie says you guys can email her and she can pull up your questions too, because it's not really a way we can get to the phone listeners. But take one more question from Victoria. Thanks, Cynthia.
Victoria, do you play all those instruments?
Hey, Simon, huge fan. And yes, I do.
Amazing.
I'm recently retired and actually taking time to play music now. So I have more time for that.
I love it.
Thanks so much for doing this. And I really wanted to ask you about max effort. And a friend of mine is a chief of a fire department of a big city in Florida. And as you know, that's a huge hotspot right now for COVID. So one of her, big chiefs is in the hospital with COVID. Her second in command had to go down for various issues. And so she's left holding the bag, right? She's got it. And she's doing what you suggested. She's reaching out to her friends and saying, hey, I'm really frustrated. I need to just vent. But as a friend, I see that she has reached her max effort and she may need to tap out and take a little bit of a break. And so what are some of the ways that I can advise her and the other leaders that I talk to on, hey, here are some signs to watch out for. You're approaching burnout. And what are some things that you can do?
It's such a difficult question. So again, I called my friend because I realized I've been off my game the past few weeks, and I called my friend, same one who gave me the warning going through combat. And no leading questions. I picked up the phone and said, "Can you tell me your symptoms?" And he says, a few months after I get back, he says, I fall out of my sleep schedule. I start going to bed really late for no reason, and I struggle to get out of bed in the morning. I'm like, check. He says, I have a really unproductive day, and I try and rationalize it to myself where I'm like, that's okay, I need a break. And then I have another one and another one and another one. Just lack of motivation. I'm like, check. And he says, and I also don't want to talk to people. Don't want to be around people. I'm also like, check. And he says, ironically, the thing that helps me get back on track is I force myself to undo those things. So I try and get back on my sleep schedule. And I force myself to reach out to people. And I think one of the biggest things someone can do in a leadership position where burnout is approaching is, yes, they have to reach out to their friends, to the vent and have people listen. But a big part of it is also going to the team. And one of the mistakes leaders make, again, we said this before, which is they have to have all the answers and they have to do all the work and they have to be, it's just not true. And for a leader to lean on their team, for a leader to say, guys, I need your help. I cannot do this alone. And none of us can do this alone. Like by ourselves, none of us is strong enough to get through this, but together we can. And for a leader to say to their team, I gotta have a day. I gotta have a day to recharge my batteries. I just need to disconnect. And I need you guys to hold down the fort for me. And it's an honor. We don't build trust by offering our help. We build trust by asking for it. And it's an honor. Think about it. We're surrounded by people who want to help if only we would ask. And think about any of us, especially everybody on this call who's chosen a life of service. When somebody says, I need you to step up, it's the greatest honor of our lives to have the opportunity to step up, even if to work at a level we're not used to working, and be forced to rely on the people to the left and the people to the right, because I know that I can't step up alone. And so for a leader to give their team the opportunity to hold the fort down and take the reins, it's the only way that leader will maintain their own mental health. Because if they crash and leave involuntarily because they burn out or something, or have a breakdown or get sick, the team's gonna have to step up anyway, and it's an unhealthier way to do it. Lean on the team.
Yeah, there was about 4 or 5 questions that came up. I'm really glad that you asked that, Victoria, because I think like as leaders, you feel like you're expected to always be available, to always be there, and then people are looking at you, which is true. Like I know Admiral Selby, you probably see like you have hundreds and a couple thousand people looking towards you. Simon, you got a whole 50 million, so you're good, you're used to this. But like, no, seriously, like I think it's like I'm always a yes man. So like, we're having, things like going on. It's like I'm always constantly trying to help. But for the first 3 weeks of quarantine, I will admit I had never teleworked. And then my coworker, I think the first weekend, he said, Ashley, you never teleworked before, have you? And I was like, nope. He's like, you're struggling, aren't you? I said, yep. And so it took me a little bit to get back up and get into rhythm. So I definitely can understand, when things that, like you said, that crisis happened, you talked about the trauma and then the burnout. Because now I saw a coworker crying the other day because I say, hey, what was wrong with you the other day? She said, just working extra because they were making masks and they were making things, non-government person, but they were like making masks to hand out, and they were coming up with new cleaning scent. Like I'm at an innovation in an innovation facility, and they were making things like when COVID hit, they started working the triple amount that they were, and burnout is real. And I'm telling Jess, like, hey, I'm using this opportunity. I told Jess, take a vacation, because both of us were up texting and emailing at 2:00 in the morning. Well, 2:00 for me, I think she's West Coast. But I was like, hey, you need to take a vacation. So like after this next week, I'm out.
Yeah, forcing people to take time off as well. I mean, my team was working double time when we were pivoting, and I got on the phone with everybody, and I said, "This is not a request. You were ordered to take. I want to know what day you're going to take off. I want you to take a long weekend. Pick a Friday or a Monday. At the very minimum, I ordered people to take their vacation. So it's really essential. There's a great story of two lumberjacks. Every morning they start chopping wood at the same time. Every day they stop chopping wood at the same time, and every day one of the lumberjacks disappears for about an hour in the middle of the day. And every day he chops more wood than the other guy. And this goes on for months. And finally, the one who works all day, he says, I don't understand. Every day we start at the same time. Every day we stop at the same time. Every day you disappear for an hour in the middle of the day. And every day you chop more wood than me. Where do you go for that hour? And the other lumberjack looks up and he says, oh, I go home and sharpen my axe. So sometimes we just need a little time to go sharpen our axe, and it actually makes us more productive. I think the other thing we have to remember, Ashley, and I think you sort of touched upon this, is just who we're modeling our behavior after. And too often, movies about leaders, Master and Commander, or whatever movie you like, remember, they make movies about bad leaders, right? The people who come in, command and control, everything's falling apart until they show up, and then everything's magical and they tell everybody what to do. They make movies about bad leaders because it's more dramatic, okay? There are no movies about Marshall, right? There's no movies about Bradley, right? And that's because you walk into an organization of a good leader and everything's just going, and people help each other and everybody's cooperative, and you're like, where's the boss? And everybody looks around like, oh, I don't think she came in today. It just makes for a boring movie. And so we have to remember that when we model our behavior, it's not the stuff we see on TV. It's actually much more calm than that. And somebody wrote, John Sansucci wrote about vulnerability builds trust. One of the other problems we have in our society, especially in a testosterone-driven culture, is we think vulnerability, or words like weakness, are negative. They're pejorative. They're bad. Nobody wants to be vulnerable. And so the way I talk about it is not in terms of those terms, but I talk about trust, right? Everybody knows what it feels like to be on a trusting team. We feel like we can raise our hand and say, I made a mistake, or I'm struggling at home and it's affecting my work, or I don't know what to do, or you've promoted me into a new position and I'm clueless, or I'm scared, or I need help, without any fear of humiliation or retribution. Now, we know that's called vulnerability. We're actually expressing vulnerability, but we feel comfortable saying those things. In an organization where there is no trust, you hide mistakes, you bury them. You would never admit that you don't know what you're doing. You would never admit you need help. You would never admit that you're struggling. You'd never admit any of these things. And that's when organizations start to break. And so we know what it feels like to be on a trusting team. Even if we're uncomfortable calling it vulnerability or expressing weakness, we can talk about trust and asking for help. And so I think we need to recognize what these things look like.
So I like where you're going here, because we actually did have a question I wanted to answer, but it's even more relevant now. From an attendee, you were saying how you tell your people, to take off and stuff. So what are some of the common signs that like leaders or even coworkers can look for in other people that might be indicators that they need support? Because if they're not going to take what you said and be vulnerable and say I need help, how do you kind of pinpoint that?
It's such a hard question because there's no right answer. Some people are able to hide their pain by working double time. The way they deal with stress is by working harder. And so sometimes someone's productivity is not the thing. Somebody might retreat, you might think something wrong. They might be the healthiest person on the team. They know just to balance. So we have to remember that everybody suffers and struggles with stress in a different way. There's no right way and there's no wrong way. And plus we all deal with it in different times. Some people, Ashley, you said you dealt with it right at the beginning. I'm dealing with it right now. I'm dealing with 4 or 5 months in. There's no right or wrong way. And so the most important thing is just frequent check-ins, frequent check-ins, frequent check-ins. And one of the things that frequent check-ins do is that when somebody is struggling, they either will get on the phone with them at some point, or they actually might feel safe enough to call and say, can I just talk for a little bit? And we don't have to be offended if they don't call us. Like we want to create an environment in which they can lean on anybody in the team. Wherever they feel safe to go for that help, they should go there. So I think that the checking in, and also we have to remember our leaders are human too. And so what happens so often, I've seen this so many times, where really like a well-intentioned leader is checking on their folks now and then. They've delegated for their directs to check in as well. And we all forget to check in on the person who's running the show. And they're also dealing with stress and they're also struggling. And we have to remember, leadership has nothing to do with rank, right? Rank affords authority. But leadership is the responsibility to take care of those around us, to take care of those in our charge. And sometimes it's okay to call up the person who's superior to us, in the hierarchy and say, hey boss, how are you doing? I know you've been out there for all of us and you've been great, but are you okay? And it's really important for a leader to model that behavior, for a leader to say, you know what, I'm having a tough time of it. Because if the leader's always fine, it's going to put massive pressure on everybody else. And some of the resources that the military makes available, mental health resources and people to talk to, it's really important for leaders, people in positions of rank and authority to say publicly, hey guys, I'm blocked out for an hour this afternoon because I'm going to talk to the doc, dealing with a lot of stress, and I need to talk to somebody. To do it publicly and not hide it makes it feel, takes away the stigma for other people to do the same. And it has to be genuine. Leaders can't do it just to model the behavior. If they're struggling, as somebody in the DoD told me, you break your leg, you go see a doctor. If you're struggling with stress, you go see somebody. Like that's what you do. So I think the leaders need to model that behavior.
Good. Hey, Adam, I know I had you waiting. Hey, how you doing?
Doing good, Ashley. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Hey, Simon, quick question for you. Obviously a big fan here. Well done. So adversity, it comes in many forms, right? So I'm lucky enough to work with incredibly savvy and talented computer experts. So considering that all military personnel over time must take on additional roles and eventually fill leadership positions, what are your thoughts on how to grow a technical expert that has the difficulty and hardship letting go of what they're really good at, but more importantly, to latch on to the idea of becoming a leader?
So a Marine general told me this, which is the first criterion for being a leader is you have to want to be one. And I don't know how it is in the Navy, but at OCS for the Marine Corps, if you enlist and you go to boot camp, Quantico or at Paris Island or San Diego, once you sign your contract, they'll make you a Marine. Like that's it, you're in 13 weeks, no choice. But when you go to OCS, you only have to do the first 4 weeks. And the next 6 weeks, you can drop out at any time. And the reason is because if you don't want to be a leader, they don't want you in a leadership position. And so I think one of the hard things that the military right now, I think all branches of the military are grappling with is the forced promotion, which is, the up or out mentality. And I think there are some people who don't want leadership positions. They don't want the responsibility of taking care of people. They love being technical experts. They love being in the weeds. That's their happy place. And if we can find a way to give them regular pay rises and leave them where they are, there's nothing wrong with leaving them there. But I think, like I said, I think all branches of the military now are grappling with this question because sometimes we're taking amazing talent and we're putting them in a position that they don't want. The Air Force is losing pilots. You know why? Because we keep taking them out of the cockpits. Not every pilot wants to be out of the cockpit, and they recognize that it's a different career track. That I'm not gonna ever pin on any stars, and I'm okay with that. So the question is a very hard one you're asking me, because some people are put in the leadership position, don't want it, but then embrace it. Same thing happens in the military. I came into the military for 4 years just to get a college education. Turns out I love it, right? So we can't put that aside either. And sometimes it's for our boss to sit down with us and say, I know you never thought about yourself as a leader, but I think you have that potential, and I want to talk you into taking a leadership position. But I think, unfortunately, it's a conversation about what kind of career path that person wants. If they don't want to be a leader, do we really want them in a leadership position? Hard choices, hard decisions.
Thank you, Adam. I want to take these two questions. They're kind of like related to this. I appreciate Adam bringing up the leadership aspect of it. So one person asked, if you were already having trust issues with your leader before, how do you continue to build trust with him or her now during this digital time? And another question was saying, let me see. It said, yeah, so how important is it for the group leader to make an initiative for those that like reach out versus just the group members? Because I guess this person's leader is not, they're not really engaging with personnel since things have started. So how do you build that trust? How do you keep the trust? How are you going to work with somebody who's not being engaged and that's your boss or your boss's boss?
Sure. Okay. So there's multiple things going on in that question. Let me see if I can break down a few of them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to what I said before. Leadership has nothing to do with rank, right? I know many people who sit at the highest levels of organizations who are not leaders. We do as they tell us because they have authority over us, but we would never choose to follow them. And yet I know many people with no formal rank and no formal authority who've made the choice to look after the person to the left of them and made the choice to look after the person to the right of them, and we would follow them anywhere. We call you leader, not because you're at the top. We call you leader because you went first, because you took the risk to head towards the danger. You took the risk to express uncertainty. You took the risk to ask for help. That's why you earn the rank of leader, because you literally led by the behavior. You led by example, right? So when this person says, my leader's not taking care of our team, I get that. The question is, who's taking care of the team? You can be the leader you wish you had. It does not require rank or authority to pick up the phone and say, how are you? And it can come from anywhere inside the organization where one person may take responsibility to take care of the mental health of everybody. Congratulations, you are a leader. What's also fundamental is that whoever that person is must remember to act with others. In other words, don't just make this unilateral decision that I'm going to just go take care of everybody because my leader is ineffective, blah, 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 blah. One, talk to colleagues and say, hey, I think what I need to do, I think our team is struggling. I think I'm going to reach out to everybody. Make sure someone knows what you're doing. Leadership is a team sport because things will go wrong. Things will get difficult. Some people may not appreciate it. You got to have somebody that you can call up and be like, what do I do? Also, don't assume the leader is ineffective. Use the same empathy that we expect down the chain of command, up the chain of command. Maybe my leader is stuck. Maybe my leader is confused. Maybe my leader is stressed out of their mind. Maybe my leader is dealing with trauma. We have no idea what's going on in that person's private life. Maybe my leader's got marital issues or struggling with their kids. Like, we don't know. And so sometimes part of that check-in is to call our boss and, hey, boss, you were really hard on us on the Zoom call the other day. I just wanted to see, are you okay? And giving a leader a safe space might be everything. And also, don't expect that you're going to get the reaction you want immediately. Some people are reactors. Some people need time to think and to process before they react. So we can't expect people to react the way we would react. And so if somebody, now let's take the other scenario, which is there actually is a leader who is completely ineffective. And this is why I talk about telling people what you're doing. I'm going to chicken on everybody, because you could ruffle the feathers of a big ego, right? You could ruffle the feathers of someone who's insecure. And so it could come down on you. This is the risk of leadership. Remember, leadership comes with risk, which is if you're willing to stick your neck out, even if it's to take care of your folks, it can sometimes backfire and hurt. The question is it worth it? And for most people who want to be a leader, that risk is worth it. This is why we so admire leaders who put their careers on the line to do the right thing, because they were willing to risk it. And so you could risk getting in trouble. You could risk getting yelled at. You could risk being told, stop doing my job. All true. And if you're alone in that, you're going to have to bear that stress. If some other people know what you're doing, you'll find comfort and security and confidence just knowing that there are other people who have your back as well. So make sure you got a leadership buddy. Leadership is a team sport. You would never go scuba diving by yourself. It's too dangerous. Don't try and be a leader by yourself. Too dangerous, too difficult. And like I said, sometimes leading up is what's necessary. We can actually help our leaders be better leaders because we're going to demonstrate the behavior. We're going to express empathy. We're going to see how they are. We're going to support them. Hey, boss, I got your back, whatever you need. I'm here. If you want to vent, I'm here. And give them a safe space also. It goes up and down.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Stephen, hi, how you doing? Welcome.
Good, Ashley. Thank you so much. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Admiral. You guys for hosting this. And of course, Simon, as a big fan of both your writings and your talks.
Thank you.
Both the Air Force Academy and here now that I sit at the Pentagon. One of the things you started to answer, and I certainly appreciate your input on, is mentorship. You talked about a lot of this, not just engaging with your leadership, but also trying to prepare the next generation. I found myself mentoring, not formally per se, but getting reached out to by a lot of younger officers in the military who are scared. And I would say both the resilience type, the tough conversations, and being able to talk up their leadership as well as across, and then also looking for opportunities in this kind of challenging COVID environment to really be the help that they have the energy and passion to pursue, but without looking like, quote, they're stepping on toes, et cetera.
Yeah.
What kind of thoughts you have about that? Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think we misunderstand what mentorship is. Mentorship is a relationship, like any other kind of relationship, like a friendship. It's a real, genuine relationship with trust that goes both ways. And I think very often we pick someone who we admire or who's senior in the chain of command, and we send them a blind email and say, hey man, will you be my mentor? Well, that's like walking up to some stranger on the street and being, hey, will you be my friend? Like, it didn't work that well when we were 5. It doesn't work that well when we're adults. As a friend of mine said, and I really love this, a mentor is someone who always has time for you. Think about that for a second, right? So here's how I learned about mentorship. So there was a guy I met, I was introduced to him, way more accomplished than me, way more senior than me, much wiser than me. And we had a meeting, we got along. About a week or two later, I had a question. I called him up and he took my call. And about a month or two later, I had another question, I had another challenge, and I called him up and he took my call. The guy just kept taking my calls. And I said, you want to meet for lunch? And we met for lunch, and a friendship evolved, but it was a friendship where I would use him to learn and grow and always ask advice. And I was at his house once, and I remember, and I was saying goodbye, and I put my arm around him to say goodbye, and I said the M word for the first time. I said, I love that you're my mentor. And he said something back to me that I did not expect. He said, and I love that you're mine. Wow. And that's when I realized that a mentor relationship is not mentor-mentee, where you have senior wise person who bestows their wisdom upon young cricket, that it's a two-way street, that he was learning as much from my questions. He was learning from my perspectives. He was learning from my youth. I didn't realize that it was a give and take in both directions. And it's like a real friendship. And I think sometimes we confuse champions with mentors. And by the way, it's good to have a champion, someone who's in our chain of command, who can put in a good word for us to get that promotion or that new responsibility. That's a champion. Mentors, a really good mentor really has no capacity to get involved in your career at all. They're either in a different service outside of your chain of command. They may not even be in the DOD. And the only thing they care about is you. That's why they give you unvarnished advice, because they have no say. And so it's okay to have a champion, people who we like and admire and who put in good word for us, but let's not confuse those with mentors. And I think very often we have to allow for mentor relationships to evolve, like friendships evolve. That's why mentor programs, I think, are well-intended, and I struggle with them because I like mentor programs and I like a group of people who volunteer to be mentors, but are they real mentorship programs? Or they can be. Some of those relationships will become mentor relationships if the relationship evolves. But I think that we have to allow for them to evolve like regular friendship, and then we derive all the benefit and more.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us, Stephen. I think we have one more that I'm going to take because I don't want to take up too much of Simon's time. I think Cindy. Cindy, are you on the line? Cindy? Maybe not. Okay, we'll take Rick. Rick is going to bring him over to a panelist, and then yeah, just take some closing remarks from you. And I mean, this has been great. Like, this is just what we needed, the conversation. So like now I'm going to actually copy this because I want all of the conversations we do on these virtual sessions just to be like in person again, because I mean, I think that's the best. Rick, did you get on? Rick? Oh, well, yeah, I guess I'll just take one more question then. So Simon mentioned team huddles to discuss things that are going on in teams' lives, which is an amazing idea. Besides the huddle or individual reaching out to a friend, what other tips have you learned in 2020 that virtual leaders and team members can use?
Virtual leading is much more difficult than leading in physical space. I think, there's all this talk about like, we're never going to go back to the office because we found out that we can run our organizations virtually. Yeah, it's true, we can, but I don't think people realize how much more work it takes to maintain trust and maintain relationships in a virtual scenario, not to mention the fact that in times of stress, when people have narratives, which are sometimes unhealthy, that without having regular interaction with people at work, those narratives fester and grow, or worse, sometimes we take those narratives and infect some of other people, especially the junior people, about what's wrong with this organization, what's wrong with this leader. And it's really just because I'm by myself and I don't know what's going on. And uncertainty is the worst thing we can do to a human being. We can deal with a good situation. That's easy. We can also deal with bad situations. Something bad that happens, we're like, all right, let's figure this out. Let's come together as a team. Let's face it. The thing that is debilitating for a human being is uncertainty. And that's where we talked about optimism. We need hope. We need our leaders to focus forwards. And it's okay to be uncertain about what the future will look like. But to say that we don't know anything, we don't know what's going on, is where we become paranoid, we become fearful, where our own narratives become completely destructive and disruptive. And the narratives that we have and the paranoia that we start to develop makes us even resistant to facts later on. And so uncertainty, and it's okay for people in leadership positions to say, we don't fully know what's going on. We don't have all the details. We don't have all the information. I'm going to tell you what we know. Some of it might change, but I'm going to tell you what we know. And the reality is we don't know a lot. Like that alone is very relaxing for a human being. But to speak with certainty and to speak with certainty and then change, and then speak with certainty and then change, what you're seeding is anxiety and uncertainty. And so I think and by the way, I'm tired of people saying, during these uncertain times. Simon, how does leadership change during these uncertain times? Newsflash, all times are uncertain. There's never been a time ever that was certain. Not before COVID, not after COVID. The only thing that has happened is because something we didn't expect happened, that we've been reminded that time is uncertain and future is uncertain and how little we actually know about most things. And to reinforce that is good. But this is not an uncertain time. All times are uncertain. But what we do need is as much as information that our leaders have, including the words, I don't know. I think that's incredibly powerful because it allows for us to be patient for people to figure things out and allow that this is a journey rather than to speak in absolute certainty when the reality is nothing is absolutely certain right now. And by the way, probably a good skill for after COVID time. I think we speak in absolute certainty a little too much, which by the way, not to editorialize, I think has contributed to some of the tensions we have in our nation, which is everything in our country these days has become binary. Good, bad, right, wrong, left, right, blue, red, everything's binary now. And we got to the point now where if I'm right, you must be wrong, right? That's nonsense. Most things are shades of gray. Most of our life, we live in gray, and gray is difficult and uncertain, absolutely. But the more binary we become, the less we listen, the more closed-minded we become, the more judgmental we become, and we know where that gets us. So I think the hard work, frankly, starts at home. Like we're quick to criticize and point fingers, and if they only, and if they got it wrong, And I think the hard work begins at home. I think for all of us to learn to listen and not necessarily agree with people, but to understand where they're coming from. We don't have to agree with each other, but we do have to try to find out where people are, how people feel, and where they're coming from. And that active empathy is probably one of the most valuable skills that we can learn to find peace in our nation, to find peace in our organizations, to find peace in our own lives. And I think if anything that has been revealed by Black Lives Matter, by COVID, and these extreme stresses and tensions that are on our nation in this day, is that I think we can all up our game and do a better job at being human.
Man, Simon, this was great. Like the SARCs, the VAs, the veterans, military, the civilian workforce, like we all thank you. Thank you for taking this time. Thank you for just pouring into us, because like this is, I know that I feel inspired. I know Jess and Admiral Selby, you guys can, agree with me. Like this has been phenomenal. Thank you for talking to our community, because I know a lot of times industry's doing these big, huge things. And I think a lot of time our workforce and our military kind of feel left out. So we thank you. Thank you from Don Sapro. Thank you from Naval X. And thank you for everybody who joined in today. We appreciate this so much. So I'm going to be quizzing and sending out stuff for all you guys. Like, I hope you guys took a lot from this.
It's my pleasure. And I want to underscore something, which is I have learned more about what it means to be human from folks in DOD than I have from people in private sector. I have hugged more people in uniform than I have in suits. I've cried with more people in uniform than I have ever have cried in suits. I've sat in a briefing and shed a tear. I've never sat in a briefing in private sector and shed a tear in my life. And I think that military sort of gives way too much credit to private sector, that they've got it all figured out. And yes, there's a lot of room for improvement in DOD. There's no question. But what you do is so fundamentally human. And in the extreme versions, your work really is about life and death. And I think the humanity that exists from those who work in and amongst DOD, please give yourselves more credit. Please give yourselves more credit, because for me to work with you guys is an honor. And as I said before, I have learned more about what it means to be a leader and what it means to be human from you than anywhere else on the planet.
Thank you so much, Simon. We really appreciate it. This was incredible.
Yeah, Simon, I just hats off to you for sharing with us today, and to everybody who tuned in today. Thanks for your time as well. It's everybody's valuable time. And I think this was very, very insightful. Starting that hard conversation, being vulnerable with others, building that trust. Really a lot of great nuggets here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, thank you guys. And I hope you guys have a good rest of the week. This started off the week good. All right. See you guys.